Well, then they've all got this. They got the press
They got the releases and they got the statements.
Would you move them in, Dan? The people down along here, get them all in. Conscientious and dedicated Secretary of Housing and Urban Affairs. One man that I've known for a number of years that is devoted to one thing, to make America a greater country and to make every city a fine place in which to live. He has a program he's announcing this morning, and I'd like to thank the President of the United States, President Johnson, as well as Secretary Weaver for this wonderful plan, which will be outlined by the distinguished Secretary. The Secretary, Dr. Weaver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Briefly, what we are proposing today is a new type of approach to meet the problem of rehabilitation in our urban centers. As you all know, with the vast amount of housing that now is substandard or in the process of deterioration, and the vast demand for low and moderate income housing, it's incumbent upon us to find methods whereby we can utilize the existing supply of housing. And it is with that in mind that this plan has been developed. Let me say that it grew out of discussions going back as early as April of this year. We first talked about this with the officials from the city of Chicago, and we refined it, we went over it, and then we asked them to go and submit a proposal. They did that, and we looked at the proposal, and we decided mutually that that proposal was a good idea, but it wasn't exactly what was needed, and they went and got another proposal. And now we have the plan which is before you. As this statement, first thing, and that is, we have devised a new method of financing by combining urban renewal and FHA programs so as to be able to do the rehabilitation and keep the rents within the range that's necessary. I'll come back to the mechanics of that in a minute. The second thing we're doing is we are providing additional dwelling units in areas where there may be now vacancies or where there would be vacancies due to the fact that there is some demolition because of the condition of the building, so that we will have approximately, as I said earlier, the same number of units as we had there before. A third element which has been added to the program is that we are providing, as the news release indicates, a series of services and a series of activities, such as homemaking, social services assistance to individuals, etc., so as to bring in a social component in this program. Now, what is unique about this is the method of financing. And here I hope I won't get too technical, but I have to go back a little bit to explain it to you. One of the great problems, and I know about this because I'm an electrician by trade and I've done house wiring, one of the great problems of going and dealing with existing housing and rehabilitating it is you never know what the total cost is going to be until after you get through. You cannot estimate it accurately. You've got to have a contingency somewhere. At the same time, in order to come out with rents that will meet the economic groups that we are dealing with here, you have to be able to come out with a total cost that's within the ballpark, or else you can't get your rents down because the rents reflect the total cost. And the subsidy here primarily is an interest rate subsidy. So if your total cost is too high, you cannot get the rents under that formula to where you have to meet the needs of the people. There's got to be some variability somewhere in there. And what we have done is to use the urban renewal tool, the write-down tool, What we do is we go in and we say we want to come out with a figure, let's say, of $13,000 for a unit. We estimate that the repair to rehabilitate that unit will be anywhere from $9,000 to $11,000. That gives you anywhere from $2,000 to $4,000 extra. And it's there's where we do the write-down. We say the write-down can be no more than 4, and it may be no less than 2. So it's in that $2,000, in that hypothetical case, that you have your contingency and your variable. And this is determined after the rehabilitation has been done, with the rehabilitator knowing that he's got to work within that financial ballpark, but knowing also that there is that leeway, and the way that's computed is by certification of your cost figures. Now this, then, the write-down to give a contingency fund is the unique nature of this proposal. Is the volume. I think that maybe at this point the mayor would like to say something, and then if you have any hard questions, ask him. Any easy questions, ask me.
The secretary's a good ball player. He can field them whether they're easy or hard. I think what I'd like to say is the people of Chicago and all of Chicago is thankful and grateful to the secretary and to the president and to all who put this program together. It's a bold, imaginative one, and we feel with the resources of Chicago and with the know-how, we'll be able to show the country what can be done in a wonderful job of rehabilitation. We also realize that this calls for the cooperation of the people in the community, and we have various representatives of the community here with us this morning, and we know they're enthusiastic about this program, and we know that they will work with us in carrying it out as quickly and as soon as possible. This is to provide, as we all know, the goal of Chicago, a decent home in a decent neighborhood for every family. This is not asking too much in 1967 or in 68, but we're determined that we will try to lead the way in every new program, in every innovation, to bring about the correction of the conditions which exist in our city and in every other city, and that is bad housing. And we're thankful again to the secretary for coming out here this morning. We're thankful to his staff for the long hours they have put in this project. We're thankful to the people in this room and the city organizations. We're thankful to the private organizations. And we hope that everyone will work in a cooperative way in bringing this about as soon and as quickly as possible. You know, you take a ride through Lawndale, and all of us know that it's a great neighborhood. A wonderful park system.
More or less just like throwing money away into an old property whereby it would be cheaper for you to build brand new stuff.
Well, I think the answer is what we are doing here is conceiving of a project of 1,000 dwelling units on 2 boulevards in Lawndale. We have never before, except in one instance in Pittsburgh, talked about doing rehabilitation of 1,000 units. We've been doing it by the 2s and the 4s and the 10s and the 20s. Now we're doing it in terms of 2 500-unit increments. We have already made certain that there will be enough 221D3 funds, sure that there will be enough funds to do the second when it's ready.
Roll.
Rolling.
Chief Daley, can you tell us what happened as best you know it at this time?
Chief, can you tell us if the second getaway car was seen at a motel in the area? We understand that there was a witness saw a man and woman leaving a car at a motel.
We're not sure if this is the car or not.
Chief, the second car, was that stolen, or was that, looked like it was more or less a plant car left there at the chemical company for a getaway car?
It was, the car at the chemical company was used for a getaway car. It was a 66 beige Chevy.
Has this been seen or recovered yet?
No, it has not.
How about a report that the woman, or there's a woman involved?
We're not sure of that as yet. We do have one subject in custody. He is wounded. He is in the Bridewell Hospital under guard
What
at
does,
the present.
what does he tell you, if anything?
The only thing he will tell us that he is from the St. Louis area.
Can you get any...
Is there any
do you have
further identification on him?
No, Marlon Johnson, head of the FBI in Chicago, and his men right now are presently working on his identification.
Chief, who were the first men to arrive on the scene, first patrolman?
That would be Officer Perry. It is believed the second squad on the scene was the detectives, Sergeant Nagel with Sergeant Husted. Sergeant Deckard was able to return fire, wounding one of the men at the scene.
Is that the man in custody?
That is correct.
Sergeant Decker, can you tell us what you did or what you found when you arrived on the scene?
I arrived on the scene, I saw that,
Can you speak up a little, Sergeant, so we can hear you?
Or could you lean over?
One or the other? That'd be easier.
We have your first name, please.
His Oren.
Oren?
His is Oren.
O-R-E-N.
D-E-C-K-E-R-T?
Yes.
Mike Kane was Oren, O-R-I-N.
Yeah, right.
D-E-C-K-E-R-T?
That's right.
The first name? Oren, O-R-I-N. Sergeant.
What guns was the man you hit carrying?
I don't know, that man wasn't apprehended yet.
Was he driving away at the time?
The car was stopped, and it lurched forward after I fired, and then it proceeded away.
It was stopped in the bank lot?
No, it was at the intersection of Laverne and Westward Ho.
We understand at least one of the officers who was killed may have been initially shot while he was still inside a squad car. Is that true?
That's possible. I don't have all the facts on it.
Chief, can you tell us which officer it was who was killed on the ground by the second shot that you described?
Officer Perry, he was shot first inside of the squad car, and as he fell out, the assailant, one of the bandits, shot him while he was lying on the ground.
Was the bank under surveillance, Chief? I understand it was.
Not today, no.
You're saying not
Has it been
today.
before?
Yes, it has.
What reason?
I can't disclose that at this
How long
time.
ago was that, Chief?
A few weeks ago.
Was there information that a bank would be held up in town here?
Yes, there was.
You took the surveillance off recently, or
Yes, a couple of weeks ago.
how long had you had the surveillance on the bank?
Only for the one day that we had a tip on it.
Sarge, did you get a good look at the bandits as they escaped, or did they still have their masks on?
No, I didn't. I wouldn't be able to recognize
What kind of
them.
masks were they wearing? Nylon stockings or Halloween masks?
I couldn't say.
Did you see a woman?
I wouldn't be able to distinguish. The distance was too great to
How far away?
tell.
How far were you from the bank when you took this shot at the car?
I was, there's a short block there.
Do you think
West
you
of the
wounded
bank.
one of them?
Over 100 feet?
Do you think you hit him?
Yes. Oh, yes. Pardon?
Do you think you hit him?
I do.
You used shotgun, Sergeant?
Yes, I did.
Officer Kane is present here with us. He was one of the officers that were shot on the scene.
Can you tell us, Chief, what happened inside the bank from the witnesses there when the men walked in?
The alarm was
Okay,
sounded before the first man had gotten inside of the bank door.
Is that a silent alarm?
It is. Before they got inside of the door, the first alarm had gone off before the other two men could have got inside, before they got inside. This is... I prefer not to say at this time.
A teller or somebody?
Yes, a teller, but I will not say who.
Were they masked at the time?
Yes, they were.
Apparently was.
Right.
She saw him come in.
Where did they get the-
Rounds were left?
No, it's a .30 caliber.
How many rounds were left?
We
in
haven't got the
weapon?
figures on it yet.
What was the exact time of the alarm?
The exact time of the alarm was 10:41 a.m. this morning.
And the first officer on the scene?
The first officer on the scene was Perry and Officer Kane.
At what time?
Within less than a minute after the alarm was sounded.
Chief,
That bank is about 2.5 blocks from the station, is that right?
Yes, sir, it is. Had a scarf over his face. Before he could get in through the second door, the alarm was sounded. The second two followed him in. and all the bank employees fell to the floor. And this is at the time they start approximately...
What are those clues, Chief? Can you tell us?
No, I cannot.
Do you
How
have...
many police officers are wounded?
I feel there will be one very soon, yes. The FBI is doing an outstanding job at the scene. We're cooperating 1,000% with them. There are Chicago police officers that are out also working at the scene.
Will it be in the Chicagoland area, you feel, or will it be out of the state? They got away. They got a pretty good distance between here and where they are now.
It's hard to say how far they'll get.
Chief, could we ask
After the,
Officer Kane a few questions about
You
his...
sure can. Michael?
Chief, do you believe that these bandits completed the job they intended to do?
On the scene, can you tell us what happened when you arrived?
As I and Officer Perry drove up.
Of course, I always facetiously identify the fact that I embarked in this particular career when I received Marquette as he came down the river and arrived in Chicago.
Goes back that far, huh?
But we'll try to update it a bit. Now I have to go back. You pushed me back into the Century of Progress days, 33, 34, when the whole world came to Chicago at that particular time, and that was my first big introduction into this great wide world, realization how big it really was. Now, of that particular period of time, Balbo was the most important personage to come to Chicago during Century of Progress days. Of course, we had much royalty. We had no kings and queens, but we had crown princes and princesses. And we had, for example, things that stands in my mind, the 48 Highlanders came from Toronto, Canada, the Essex Scottish from Windsor, Ontario. Then I started to smile, and why? I remember the Essex Scottish. That was back in the days of Prohibition, you remember. Mm-hmm. Money was more valuable then than it is now. And we made them an allowance of $3,500 for expenses. They invested it all in Scotch liquor, and they brought it in their blankets, which made them the most popular people in Chicago, you can well imagine, at that particular period of time. But then we go out. I'm not going to touch on my New York world experiences or Army experiences where I met so many people. I move up to Chicago in the period of Mayor Daley. Now, of course, standing out in my mind, well, even in advance of coming to Mayor Daley, Kennelly was still mayor when MacArthur came here. That was a great day in Chicago. In Mayor Daley's period, of course, he instituted a policy which had never prevailed in Chicago before. He realized that with the coming of these important personages from all over the world, with the coming of each one of them, they developed here in Chicago and was transmitted through the media of communication from Chicago to the rest of the world, the story of the real Chicago, which came as a surprise to all of them who came here. Chicago was quite a different place than they expected to find. Most of them knew two things about Chicago, or thought they did when they came here. They'd heard about the stockyards, they heard about gangsters. So when we get these people here, and they are important enough in their own countries that everyone covers their visit here, it's a great opportunity for Chicago to tell the real Chicago story. Now, to qualify in that particular field, I guess with the graceful bow from the Irish, we would have to move up to the top of the ladder, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth of Britain, who did give to Chicago, or played a part in building for Chicago, one of the greatest days we ever had in Chicago. I generated as much enthusiasm or more than almost any time I've been associated with things with the coming of the astronauts. What magnificent people they are. Gus Grissom, young, white, and to think that tragically White's gone, Grissom's gone, two great Americans. The King of Belgium, the bachelor king at that particular time, poor man, he would have really taken the city by storm if it wasn't for the fact that he arrived in May of '59, and behind him was coming Elizabeth, and no one would listen. Right. Everything was Queen Elizabeth. They continue to pour into Chicago, and it's not accidentally. Whenever we learn that there is the possibility of anyone coming to visit the United States by invitation of the President, Mayor Daley immediately communicates with Washington, suggests that Chicago be placed on the itinerary. And you noticed and have noticed that more and more of them are directed here.
Jack, what are some of the events you're going to be working on next year?
Well, of course, there are some that are planned well in advance, and then some occur from day to day. But the big ones next year that I am looking forward to, there will, of course, the coming of the Shrine Convention, which is the largest of all conventions, comes to Chicago.
I thought it was a joke.
Envelope company. You know, he was under Big Bill Thompson.
Yeah.
He had a white car. He was... And of course, I keep versed with all high-class literature.
Right. Sounds good, Jack. You're going to have some busy times ahead.
Look forward to them.
Thank you. I'm Frank Sullivan at City Hall. Hey, I